With the 2022 Las Vegas Summer League going just as fast as it came, I'm sure it left a lot for GMs, coaches, players, and fans of each and every team in the NBA with a lot to think and talk about. This means that training camp is the next key off-season event for the Toronto Raptors to look forward to. And I think it's crucial that we talk about why training camp would be so important and what are the final roster decisions that I would make if I was the GM, which I'm not. But guys, quickly before we get into this video, just two things to cover. One, I have a microphone now. We're moving up in the world here. We're professional now. And as always, if you're enjoying this video, please remember to give it a like, share with anybody you want to, and subscribe to my channel. I'll greatly appreciate any support you're willing to give. And as always, if you're interested in anything I do outside of YouTube, please remember to give me a follow on my other social medias, Instagram and TikTok at SportsButCasually. The link to both social medias would be in a link tree in the description below. Now let's get into the video. So what is training camp exactly? And if we're being honest, it's a pretty self-explanatory term. Basically, it's a few days where an NBA team gets their full roster together, where they practice and do drills, and just generally bond as a team both on and off the court. It puts more of a focus on, the young guys, the undrafted free agents, and the fringe roster players, as in training camp, NBA teams are allowed to have a maximum of 20 players on their roster. And with the combo of training camp and preseason being so close together, it's also used to gradually ramp players up to game shape. Teams have a general idea of the majority of players who would make the final roster, so these few days or weeks they spend evaluating the fringe NBA talent to see who gets cut and who stays employed basically. Before the beginning of the regular season, teams have to cut their roster down to 15 players. Technically 17 players, as teams are allowed to have 2 players on two-way contracts. However, those two-way players don't count to the general final roster. Now that we have an idea of the importance of training camp, why is this year's training camp so important for the Toronto Raptors? And for that, first, we need to cast our minds back to last year. As we remember, last year's training camp came down to a 3-man battle for the last 2 roster spots between Sam Dekker, Ishmael Wainwright, and Isaac Bonga. The loser of that race ended up being Ishmael, who just months prior gave a very detailed and emotional interview about the struggles he faced playing basketballs overseas, how he plays for his kids, and how hard being away from his family is. And the guys we cut him for were Sam Dekker, who played 1 game for us and then was cut a few weeks later. He was cut 1 day after he and his wife announced that they were expecting the birth of their first child. Sometimes I forget just how fucked up our front office could be from times. Damn. Oh yeah, and there was Isaac Bonga, who played a total of 69 minutes for us last season.
Nice.
Ishmael ended up signing for the Phoenix Suns. Dekker, it was revealed that he was cut for luxury tax purposes, and his wife ended up giving birth to their son. So I guess everybody wins. Except for Isaac Bonga. Now, with that trip down memory lane finished, let's now shift our focus to the present. The Raptors have 19 players under contract, with only our second-round rookie Christian Koloko still unsigned. But he will sign sooner or later, so it's safe to assume that the Raptors are entering training camp with a full 20-man roster. And now, this is where the tough decisions begin. What's up, everybody? Now, as you would have seen already, Christian Koloko would have signed his rookie contract, and the Raptors would have waived Svi Mihailuk. I apologize once again that the editing process has taken so long, but I hope you guys still enjoy this video with those pieces of information in mind. Yeah, that's all. Sorry again. Enjoy. You see, with both of our two-way contract spots given to Jeff Dowtin and Ron Harper Jr., this means we need to cut 3 players in order to get down to that 15-man regular season roster. We already know the guys who are safe. It's our core guys. So it's Fred, it's GTJ, it's Scotty Barnes, it's OG, it's Pascal Siakam, It is Precious Achua, Boucher, Thaddeus Young, and not to mention newly signed Otto Porter Jr. That's 9. My hands look weird. Yeah, so that's 9. We also have other guys on the roster, Malachi, Cambridge, and it looks like, unfortunately, Civ might be safe for now, so that's 12. And I didn't say it before, but Koloko is also safe, because of course he is. Fun fact, second round picks normally negotiate their own contracts, so it will be very interesting to see the final number that he ends up signing for. Whenever that would be. The important thing is, we're up to 13 players, which means we have 2 spots left and 5 players fighting for it. Dalano Banton, DJ Wilson, Justin Champagnie, Juancho Hernangomez, and Gabe Brown. Now, let's get the easy one out of the way. Gabe Brown isn't making the final roster. He's more of a developmental project player that we're going to have in the 905. So, we're down to 4 players. And unfortunately, the next one to get the boot is Juancho Hernangomez. Nothing against Bo Cruz. I mean Juancho. He's a fantastic actor. But I do think the fact that he is kind of a defensive liability would cause him to miss the cut. Yes, I know he's 6'9" and he could space the floor. But if I'm being honest, my gut is telling me that he won't be a good fit for the Raptors. Hence why I don't have him making the final roster. 3 players left and only 2 spots available. Is anybody getting deja vu? Dalano Banton, DJ Wilson, and Justin Champagnie. I like all of these guys. I think they're versatile players and can be a part of our rotation immediately. Banton, although he has his scoring and turnover issues, is still a very competent defender and is huge at the guard position. And while yes, you don't want him being the primary ball handler for the second unit just yet, I do still think that he could grow and eventually lead the second unit if he gets more playing time and more experience. Wilson is an experienced player who could do a little bit of everything. He could score it, he could space the floor, grab boards, and defend. Because of his defensive versatility and his size, I do think he has the ability to play some minutes at the 5 for us, although I really don't recommend that. That's like a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. And Champagnie, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling out of all 3 players. We saw it in the G League and in his small sample size of NBA minutes. He could shoot the ball, he is a good defender for either guards or forwards, and not to mention he has this Charles Barkley, Dennis Rodman-esque ability to track the ball and get rebounds. Because he's such a threat on the offensive glass, he has this ability to change a game with his rebounding ability. But unfortunately, one of these guys has to lose the race, and for me, that's going to be DJ Wilson. And I have 2 reasons why. 1, he's the oldest player out of the 3, him being 26, while Banton and Champagnie are 22 and 21 respectively. And number 2, Wilson is a frontcourt player, which means he's going to be fighting in a saturated position that we have on the Raptors roster. The Raptors need more guards. And honestly, if I have to choose between getting players at a position of need rather than a player at a position of luxury at this point, the decision is very easy. It sucks because, I really like Wilson ever since he joined the Raptors on his hardship deals last season. And I really wanted him to make the roster. I've always vouched for him to be signed to the main roster. But hey, unfortunately, things just don't work out. But it doesn't have to end like this. DJ, as I said, would end up losing the race. However, he could still make the final roster due to one key move that I think the Toronto Raptors should make. And that move is simple. Just cut Svi, or Civ, however you say his name. Yes, he is 6'7" and he's a good shooter. He fits the mold for exactly the type of player that the Toronto Raptors want. However, that's the problem. Last year, he was horrible defensively, and he's supposed to be a good shooter, but he couldn't even throw the ball into the ocean. So what's the point of keeping him around? It's not like he's a part of the rotation anymore. He fell out of the rotation at the beginning of 2022, which is really wild because the Raptors really needed guard help last season. And Nick Nurse was like, nah. In the latter half of last season, when Van Vliet's knees were absolutely cooked and he was either out or playing on one leg, Nick Nurse looked down the bench, looked Svi dead in his face, and said, fuck him. Now I realize how harsh this really is, especially one of the major flaws of Nick Nurse as a head coach is that he has his bench players on an extremely short leash. You could look to Malachi Flynn as living proof of that. Speaking of Malachi, he wasn't in the rotation either at the beginning of the season, but to his credit, he worked his way into the rotation but unfortunately suffered an injury. The difference between the two is one is a former first round pick who has shown flashes of leading the second unit, scoring the ball and facilitating for others, while the other one is a 3-and-D specialist who doesn't contribute on D and can't shoot the 3. And I think the worst thing about it is if we trade or cut Svi, wherever he ends up next season, he's going to magically remember how to shoot the basketball. And we just have to accept that because that's just our luck whenever we sign shooters. I'm looking at you, DeMar Carroll. Shout out to you. By giving Svi's roster spot to DJ Wilson, we'll be getting a guy who could do a little bit of everything on the court. And yeah, he won't end up being a star. However, I do believe that he will be a guy that Nick Nurse can trust to give a few minutes to every night. I think the main goal for the Toronto Raptors entering next season, besides making a deep playoff run, is to gradually reduce the minutes of our starting 5. We saw it last season with Van Vliet. Guys will break down sooner or later due to an excess of minutes. Next season, there should be absolutely no reason why any of our guys play over 37 minutes per game. I would love for the maximum amount of minutes per game our guys play to be around 34. And that would only happen if we fill our bench with competent NBA players who will allow our starters to get more rest. And you have that with DJ Wilson, not with Svi Mykhailiuk. So guys, this would be my ideal final roster heading into the regular season. 15 regular season contracts and 2 two-way players to bring us to the 17 that we need. I know it's not the flashiest of rosters, and it's a very high chance that we run into the same depth problems as we did last season. However, I don't think that will be the case next season, or I hope it won't. The Toronto Raptors are a team and an organization that prides itself on player development, and we're staying true to that right here. We're looking for guys like Banton, Champagnie, Flynn, even Scotty and Precious to make another step forward and to make more solid contributions to our rotation. Even though Scotty and Precious played big roles for us last season. We also have Thad, who's going to have an entire offseason in our system, our entire starting 5 getting a much needed rest, not to mention newly signed Otto Porter Jr., who would bring his 3-and-D talents to help elevate this roster even higher. So there's absolutely no reason for us to believe that this team won't be even better next season. But guys, as we all know, I don't make the final roster decisions, and since training camp and preseason are still a while away, why don't you guys let me know who y'all want to make the final roster? I would love to read all about it in the comments below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. I am Sports But Casually with a microphone now. Hopefully going forward in my next videos I'll still have this mic if it doesn't break. Knock on wood. But I shall see y'all another time with probably another Raptors video. So until then, y'all remember to be safe and later.